I work with a lot of business owners, CEOs primarily, helping them achieve peace and really full state presence.
There are things that happens to us subconsciously that can derail us from capturing what we think we ought to fulfill in this life. There are blockage, limits, whether it's in the area of finance, creativity. It's like when somebody who's an artist said that they have writer's block. Or for me, early in business, depending on the number, the size of the contract, sending out that invoice. These are things that we don't necessarily understand that's happening because it happens under the surface, it happens under the hood. And we don't really have any check engine light that tells us that we need to change our oil or the way that we think. What usually winds up happening is if these blocks hinder us in our business, hinder us in our deal making, hinder us in our creativity, hinder us in our performances, and we get with someone like our guest today, they help us to work through it. And then we can look back retrospectively with 2020 vision and say, oh, that's what happened. Now, these blockers, we all have blinders, we all have them, uh, can be worked through. There's variations of ways that they can be worked through, but they're not worked through from the outside in. They have to be worked through from the inside out. To transform the subconscious thought process, it's just not a work of affirming. It's just not a work of manifesting. It's just not a work because I can manifest to do things that is just not going to be in the cards to do. What happens is that we all have a blueprint and things that we are great at and purposeful for. And when we align with our subconscious thoughts, we really find how to harmonize our true gifts with where we need to be and overcome the thing that keeps us limited. So we move from limiting beliefs to what we call unlimited beliefs. My name is NaRon Tillman. This is Walk in Victory, where we sit you at the feet of the masters and have conversations to help you evolve your life. Today, our master has a similar sounding name as mine. Deron, how are you, sir?
Doing great, NaRon.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your gift. If you don't mind talking to our audience about how you help people to overcome the subconscious blocks and what is your niche audience and core group that you like to work with?
Yeah, so I'm a master conversational hypnotist, so I use hypnosis as a tool to help people actually reach their desired state. So I work with a lot of business owners, CEOs primarily, helping them achieve peace and really full state presence. That tends to be a large portion of my audience where it's something where on paper they have everything, the money, the wealth, the house, the cars, and everything. However, deep down inside, they still don't feel fulfilled. And that could stem from so many things, whether it be grief or whatever it could be. And I explained to people that we're conditioned to think that we have to go into the past to resolve something. And I explained to people that through my process, there is no speaking about that past as if it were a therapy session. It's all future oriented. So it's really, all right, where is it that you want to be or who do you want to become? And help them achieve that state by them really, and it to me it's not so much releasing blocks because what's there is actually a protective thing. It's actually helping them to feel safe enough to release their old blueprint, their old programming, in order for them they have the ability to actually experience whatever they are. So is like one thing you mentioned during the introduction about manifestation or manifesting. So a lot of people look at manifesting as them getting the things that they want. However, manifestation is actually everything that's happening in your life, whether you want to label it the good, the bad, the ugly, all that stuff we're manifesting. And it's really very vital to become aware of your surroundings and see what's happening in your life and to really just take responsibility. So you'd be like, you know what? That's on me. That's me. That's me. It's not this person. It's not this company. It's not this circumstance. Like, I am attracting these things into my life because by you doing that, you're giving yourself the ability to take ownership for this magnet of our mind that's attracting these experiences. And it could be as simple as just going within to notice, like, oh, maybe I'm attracting this thing, even though I don't like it, because it actually keeps me from being seen in the world. So maybe my subconscious mind is actually keeping me small because it knows if I'm being too big or if I'm being too vocal, maybe it can create judgment, and I don't want to be judged. So everything that our mind's doing is to benefit us, even if it may not seem like it. It just may be an old programming that just has to get replaced with a different program.
It's funny that you said that because when we think about like the law of attraction, we do have these magnets that we pull people in to us, to who we visualize ourselves to be. So when we look around our core groups, whether it's at work or whatever, it's really a external picture of who we think we are, who we are at the time mentally. And that's why when people who grew up in unsuccessful neighborhoods has the mindset to change from that poor mindset, or they build themselves up. The old groups say, "Oh, you changed on us." You didn't change on them. You just really are attracting um, people from where you are. I like the idea, and I want to explore the idea of how you are creating these new blueprints, so to say, this new architecture for the mind, pathways, instead of drawing back from the old blueprints, the old pathways. We're forging towards something better. And where did that philosophy come from? And how did you go about saying this is the lane that I think works best for the people that I work with?
Yeah, because it that process originated from the original talk therapy model, where people started to talk about their past. They thought that talking about it was going to help them with whatever they were dealing with. However, by people doing that, they're reinforcing their past. Because if you think about law of attraction, if you would experience, let's say, physical abuse in your past, how could you talking about it actually help you overcome that? Because it's the metaphor or analogy I use is it's like a computer. Your computer operating system is going to get updated. So what you do is you just install the new operating system, and the new operating system is going to uninstall the old one on its own. You don't have to go in there and uninstall the old one first and then install the new one. You just install the new one and then it uninstalls the old one. And it does that because those two systems cannot be operating at the same time. They're gonna just butt heads in your computer. It's not gonna work properly. So what people have been conditioned into thinking is, oh, I have to talk about the past in order to resolve it. And what's taking place is we have layers of our mind, we have protective layers of our mind. So when people do that, they may not be getting through all these layers of protection in their mind. And this is how come some people believe that healing is a journey. And I tell people healing is not a journey whatsoever. That's just a what's the called it's a general statement that people have been conditioned to believe, like, oh, healing's a journey, to the point where people use that as an excuse nowadays, like, oh, I did this because I'm on my healing journey, or I did that because I'm on my healing journey. And it's like, when does it end? And they don't know because they're told, oh, you'll be healing for the rest of your life. But like, why would people believe that we were born to be healing? Like, when do you get to enjoy your life? Because healing is not a journey, which people, when they work with me, they realize that healing is just a decision that you make in your mind.
Hmm.
And when you make that into your mind, you program your mind, oh, NaRon wants to become a billionaire. We didn't know that. Okay, great. Now let's create that program for billionaire status. Where if we keep perpetuating the past, oh, I'm this way because of my neighborhood. I'm this way because of my upbringing. Your mind's like, oh, we're this way because of our upbringing in the neighborhood. Perfect. Got it. That's the program. So now it keeps perpetuating that system. It's just like a tape recorder. You're playing it over and over again in your head. And people think they can just sit down and do affirmations. However, there's protective layers that are there in place to avoid new programming to get in because it filters it out. Because once those programs get put into your mind, they get locked in place, and they're there because once again they benefit us and they are protective things. So when an individual not relaxed, but when they're safe in their mind, the mind is open to new ideas and new perspective of things. It's just like someone being chased by someone, and as they're being chased, they're telling themselves, "Oh, I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm this, I'm this," and their mind's like, "We're in a state of panic right now. Like this, that can't be true." Because the key is not about changing your thoughts. The key is about changing your state, and your state is not your emotions. Your your emotions is just a label that you use about your state. So once you change your state, what happens is that will automatically change those automatic thoughts that are going on in your head. So it's like if someone's state is, let's say, fatigue, they're feeling tired, that's their state. Now, because of them feeling that way, what will they start doing? They're like, man, something must be wrong because I'm tired. Now their mind's like, oh, something's wrong. Okay, great. So what does their mind do? Let's show him or her that something is wrong. And now they perpetuate this loop. But then they try to change the thoughts, but they don't change the state. What ends up happening is they don't feel congruent. So it's about changing your state, not your thoughts. And this is something that a lot of, I guess you say, spiritual books would talk about. Oh, change your thoughts, change your life. No, it's change your state, which will change your thoughts, which will change your life.
Yeah, that's
So it's the opposite.
now that's a brilliant thing because we are in the loop. The subconscious mind does, it feels like, hey, this is what we do, right? We get paid. We used to sing the song, just got paid Friday night, Monday, and that becomes the soundtrack of our lives. And we say, oh, I wonder why I live from check to check. That's the loop that we presented. And now the subconscious mind is saying, hey, this is what we do. We get paid, we get broke, we go back to work. So we have to now create new thoughts, create new ways of thinking. And then the mind, the mind state has to shift before the thing that we desire manifests itself. That's why people hit the lottery and become broke again because the finances changed, but the state of mind didn't. You say technical conversational hypnosis. I like that term. How did you what describe what that term means, and how did you decide that working with entrepreneurs would be the thing that you use this gift of yours towards?
So conversational hypnosis is me using, like the name says, using conversation to help someone get into a hypnotic state. And once again, the key word is state because it's all about your state. So ultimately, it's to bypass the analytical mind, critical mind, the analyzing, narration mind. They're all just interchangeable terms for it. The mind that likes to judge and be in control. So it bypasses that controlling mind so that way things can be impressed onto the unconscious mind. And once that happens, because for example, it would be like if I was talking to someone directly and I was like, "Hey, you're a billionaire," that judging mind's gonna be like, "No, we're not. I have $20 in my bank account. There's no way I'm a billionaire because I don't have that much money." But through bypassing that part of the mind and talking to the subconscious mind, saying, "Hey, you actually are a billionaire." Subconscious mind doesn't agree or disagree, or it doesn't disagree. It always agrees. So you say you're a billionaire, it's like, okay, great. So now, because of that, it starts to draw those resources, ideas, and feeling states and emotions for you to actually physically experience that state. Because with your subconscious mind, as you may have heard before, like it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So you just tell it what it is and what to do, and it just always agrees. Like, okay. So it's no different than when people are like, "Hey, I'm a loser." The subconscious mind's like, "Okay." It's always going to agree with you. The conscious mind is going to agree or disagree, and it's really looking for proof in the external world. That's how come people are like, "Oh man, I keep trying to affirm, but I'm not seeing it." It's like because it's not getting past that critical mind, the analytical mind. It's trying to find proof. It's trying to look for proof that that is actually true. And then guess what happens when people do that? They're like, "Oh man, it's not working." Boom. Their mind agrees with it, and now that sinks into their subconscious mind too. You're right. It's not working. So now they're like, nothing I do works. And then that can perpetuate into a spiral of them feeling depressed and apathy and hopeless. So, and I explain that just so people know how quick that can happen. And then your next part of your question, what was this? The second part? I'm
You
sorry.
niching down on working.
Oh, niching down. Oh, yes. As far as niching down, like it was just a natural process. I really didn't focus on any particular audience at first. What I would do, I just posted my message on YouTube and social media, and that just tended to be the audience that came to me. And I say that because I think a lot of people look at people that own their own business, entrepreneurs, CEOs who are making six, seven figures, like clients I've worked with and still work with, as oh, they got everything figured out. They they don't. Like they're no different than the person that has $5 in their bank account. What's very important to be mindful of is even though they may have more money, they still may have problems that are very similar. They just found a tool like money to become like their addiction. So it's no different than someone that uses alcohol to cope with things. That person may use money to cope with things. Where what they'll do is they they created a contract in their mind of money's gonna make me happy. So what do? They set out, they hustle, they grind, they do everything they can to make money. They build businesses after businesses, and then they're traveling the world, and then they're like, "I'm not happy. Like, I guess I got to do more." So then they do more of it, and they're like, "Still not happy." And then they come to me like, "Hey, I got everything. I got everything I want. I could buy whatever I want, but I'm still not happy." And then they realize, oh, maybe money's not gonna make me happy. Just one example.
I don't know that, and that's a great example because someone may be listening right now who has a mindset that if I just get a little bit more money, then it's going to change everything else in my life. Or I get another contract, then the business is going to be okay, and then I'm going to be all right. But if we don't change the state of mind, and I love that, I'm gonna start using that when I'm working with my customers. I'm already just letting you know now. If we don't change our state of mind, which is actually creating what we call a new neural pathway, which is a new way of thinking, without attaching ourselves to that old way, because some people are not equipped. And we'll wrap this bow like this: some people are not equipped to bring us out of that state if they tap into our old worldview or our old childhood traumas, and they're tapping into it, we are explaining it, and we think that we're sitting across from someone that's going to help us graduate or move to a new state of mind, and we now leave there feeling worse than we did when we got there because we're we're opening up old wounds that we should be trying to create new neighbors for that, because that old state is still going to be there, that even if we tap into it and help a person to try to build a bridge, whether it's through hypnosis or mindfulness or meditation, whatever tool that people use to build a new pathway. That old thought process is still living there. But we're able to disconnect ourselves. How do you feel about that philosophy, or with the way that you do it, that old process is just gone?
It's the old process isn't there. It's a good example of that was I tell people that your story is going to change around something because people will sometimes get on a session with me and the first thing I want to do is just start to talk about their past and their traumas and this, that, and the other. And I'll tell them like, hey, like none of that actually matters. And they get confused. And they get confused because they've been so used to talking to people about their problems or all that stuff. Like I don't even really ask people what their problem is. I just say, what do you want? Because when I used to ask like, hey, what's the problem? What's going on? What would end up happening is that, like, well, 30 years ago, I dealt with this,
And
da, 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 and it's like 30 minutes later, and I'm like, okay, mm, that's a lot that happened. So what do you want? And I've had people just go into hypnotic state just by me asking them what they want. They just go into a hypnotic state just like that, mainly because they've never even asked themselves what do they want because they've been so attached to their story, and they're like, I don't even know. And then I'll say to them, I know you don't know because you've been so attached to your story about who you believe you are. Because, yeah, you went through, because it even goes back to people using the word trauma. It's such a huge, huge word nowadays. And I know someone was really upset at me on social media because I made a video and I said, trauma is not the event, trauma is what you believe happened. Because if you're someone that experienced, let's say, I use abuse since I'm on that, I've used it earlier. You use abuse, like you could admit to yourself, yeah, I was hit or whatever. Okay, that's a true statement. However, by you saying, oh, I was hit by my mom because she didn't love me, that's a story. Because now you've made that attached this story, like, oh, my mom doesn't love me. So that's a story, and then people are like, oh, I dealt with X, Y, and Z, and da 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 da. It's trauma, but trauma, like people think trauma always lives and stays in their body. That is so untrue. It stays and lives in your body because you keep holding on to the story about trauma. That's all it is. So the key thing for them is to let go of the story. And once again, it's protective. They use that story to keep them protected. And it's just like someone saying, "Oh, I can't do this because I'm tired." That's a story. Like I always tell people, like something that you can do that's really simple is just be mindful of the stories that you tell yourself throughout the day or you tell other people. Oh, I don't have the money. Story. Like you could find money. Like you could. I promise you. I've had people where they're like, "I don't have the money," and just like an hour later, they find the money somehow. Like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I found money this way, this way, this way." It's about being resourceful with it. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. People call them excuses. I say they're just stories. They're narratives. But when you perpetuate that, you're just locking those into your mind even more. So it's going back to the question. I know I was on
no,
a
no,
tangent
no.
there.
I love this.
The,
I love this. Yeah.
yeah. So the thought process, they're non-existent, and that that is not you forgetting what happened. It's you just looking at the situation differently. I had a client recently, and she had this idea about this very strong inner critic she had in her mind that she believed was her mom. And during our session, she came out of her trance and she was like, my mom was always a little kid. And she was always a little kid. And she's like, I have so much compassion. I was like so upset because my mom never taught me how to be confident. But I realized her mom wasn't confident and she was never an adult. She was always acting and living like a little kid. And for her, she had so much compassion. So because of that, she released this, I would say, this blame she put towards her mom for her not being confident. because she in her mind thought her mom was supposed to show her how to be confident, but she realized, how can I learn how to be confident from someone that's not
Not
confident?
confident. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's I love, and then I'll let you go. I love the whole trauma because I trauma being wrapped into the story because the stories actually live in the body. And I used to tell people up until after this interview that trauma stores in the body, but it's not the trauma, it's the story that we connect to the trauma. Right? Trauma is just trauma. Trauma is a tool, right? Just like joy is a tool. But
Yeah, it's something like this. Just sorry to cut you off.
no,
It's like if someone used the word trauma, you just ask them, like, what is trauma?"
yeah,
9 times out of 10, they don't know what, like, I
they're
don't
going to tell
know."
you a story.
No, yeah, you're using a word. Yeah, it's a story. You're using a word that you don't even know, and it's because you've been so conditioned to our society saying, "Oh, trauma," because if you really think about it too, we use this word so loosely now, and it's like, well, if we're so aware of trauma, then why are we still experiencing so much trauma in our world?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about us labeling it.
Yeah, yeah, and we don't really have a working definition because everyone is going to give you a story.
Exactly. So it goes back to, okay, yeah. And it's like it's just something as simple as, okay, yeah, I know you dealt with this trauma. Okay, well, I'm sure you don't want the trauma, so what do you want instead? And then once again, they'd be like, "Oh, I've never even
Thought
thought
about that.
about that." Like, yeah,
Yeah, because
you keep talking about the trauma, but what do you want?
the mind only works can only focus on one thing at a time. So it either focusing on the past, worried about the future, or being present into what we want right now. And most people don't deal with
Hmm.
their true intentions because we don't sit down and we're when we sit down in quiet time, we're worried about what we can't pay or focusing on our trauma instead of saying, how do I really maximize what it is, my true I am itself, my true I am, and
Hmm.
create because we create from within the life that I really desire to have. And that's why you are the GOAT. I told you guys we sit you at the feet of the masters. You've heard us work through this beautiful session. And these are tools that you can actually apply and use today. But more so, if you want to continue to grow in the path, Deron, all of his information is in our description. These are tools that work. They work fast, and they're tested and tried. We don't ask you for cash apps, Venmos, or any of those things, but we do ask you that you hit and subscribe, your likes and your subscriptions. Help these shows get to the ears of people that need it. Talk about it, brag about it, show it. And then also, as we forestated, follow our guests so that you continue on the path of learning because learning is not a one-time thing, it's a continual thing. We all every day have enough capacity to hold more so that we can continue to build our better selves, change those stories, switch those stories out, put working definitions on joy. Let's have stories of joy. Let's have stories of peace that we can really foster and see our world change. Because the world around us only change from the lens that we see. We don't walk with our head down. We don't walk begging. We don't walk carrying stories of trauma. We walk in victory. And now Deron is a part of the Walk in Victory family. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.